Hello guys, Blagaga here, and as promised, here it is, the ultimate guide for Code of the Duelist sneak peek. This is probably the most in-depth guide for this upcoming event that you will find on the internet right now. And if you are planning on going to the sneak on this weekend, I would highly recommend watching the entire video. So this is a very long video talking about really everything you need to know about this event. So I will give you general advice on the event itself, advice on how to build your best possible deck, things that you should and should not do, and most importantly, we will discuss all 100 cards from the set. Yes, you heard right, all 100 cards from the set. And trust me, there are so many advice, just small things that you would never think about that can potentially win you a game. So if you follow my advice, your chances of winning this event will be much higher. But first, for all the people who don't know what a sneak peek is, let me give you a quick description of this event and why it's, in my opinion, one of the best things about Yu-Gi-Oh! The sneak peek is a special tournament that's always on the weekend before a major booster set is released. But instead of using your own cards, you use cards from the new booster set. Not only is this a good opportunity to get your hands on new cards, especially the first set ever with link summoning, so it's even better to go there. But you can also go to this event if you never played Yu-Gi-Oh! Before and don't even have any cards. So what happens on the sneak? So first of all, you pay an entry fee of 20 bucks. Seems a lot, but in return you get 5 booster packs from the new set Code of the Duelist, plus a promo ultra rare card, in this case it's Ventured Houndhound. Afterwards you have around half an hour to build your deck of at least 20 cards. You can also use the promo card and you can use as many duplicates of the card. So if you, for example, put the same card 5 times, it doesn't matter, you can play that 5 times. Those are special rules for sneak peek only. Very important, you cannot trade during this event, because otherwise you could just trade the best cards and have higher chances of winning. Also, you are not allowed, by the way, to give your opponents advice on how to build their deck for whatever reason. For example, if there's a younger player and you want to teach them how to play the game. But don't worry, that's why you are watching this video, and I will teach you all the relevant stuff for this event. After finishing your deck, you play a few rounds of Swiss, and how many depends on the amount of people who actually participate at this event. And later on, maybe if you are lucky and got really far, you will have to finish the event in a top 8 or top 4 KO cut. By the way, the winner will get a brand new Code of the Duelist playmat with a cover monster Fire Dragon on it. So because this is a brand new layout of the playmat, I think that this is very good to go to this tournament just to get a new playmat with the new design and new layout with the link zones and the pendulum zones on the bottom left and right corner. Very important, even if you lose, play till the end, because it could be that sometimes playmats are given to random players by just rolling dice. Yes, you are right. And so even if you're last place, there's still often a chance that you will actually get some prizes. In my opinion, this is just an additional reason to go there, because not only can you trade, but you can also potentially get a prize. It's good for every kind of Yu-Gi-Oh! Player. Advanced players get their stuff early and can trade for a lot of cards that have a lot of value, especially on sneak peeks. And some younger players, or not that experienced players, have an easy way to get to this tournament without spending a lot of money. If you have any additional questions, just ask me in the comments and I will do my best to answer you as quickly as possible. I also have a link down in the description to another YouTuber's guide on how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! It's from Cimoooooooo, in my opinion one of the best YouTubers out there, and his guide is really good. So if you are completely new to the game, if you never played Yu-Gi-Oh! In your life, you are not familiar with link summoning, watch his guides and then you will know everything about the game and you know all the basics for the event. So now that you know everything about the event, let's talk about some general advice. And this is where the video gets really interesting and where you should definitely listen up, because these are the informations that you need to win this event. Advice number 1. Winning by decking out is a thing on the sneak peek. Keep in mind you're only playing a 20 card deck on the sneak, not a 40 card like normal. So after like 10 turns, the chances are really high that some people will just lose because they can't draw a card from their deck. So if you play like 21 or 22 cards, the chances are very low for you to actually deck out before your opponent. A lot of people don't play more than 20 cards, so especially now considering the Lights One monsters who send cards from the top of your deck to the graveyard. Those are just another reason why decking out is just a huge option if you're playing against an opponent has too many Lights One monsters on the field. You can just watch while they're milling their cards and then they just take out a few rounds later without giving a second thought what they're actually doing with their cards. So don't underestimate this fact. Advice number 2. The magic number of the sneak is 1800. So many 1800 beat sticks, seriously, I think there are 8 or 9 of them. And it doesn't sound that much, but most of them are common. What I'm trying to say is, if you have a monster and its attack and defense wills are both under 1800, it's not that good. It's many gonna die in battle instantly because your opponent is gonna have always like an 1800 beat stick to just destroy your monsters. So even a monster with like 1700 attack, which seems really decent normally for a sneak peek, is not that good on this one. Of course, there are a few exceptions to this rule that I'm talking about later when we discuss all the different monsters. Advice number 3 is really similar. The second most important value is 2300 because all the monsters, the level 4 or lower monsters, have 2000 or 200 or less in one stat. So that means that with 2300 you get over everything. Okay, next advice. Advice number 4, read the cards. I know this sounds stupid as an advice, but I cannot tell you how many people misplay on the sneak peek. They don't know their rulings, they don't know their effects. As soon as people open like a pack on a sneak, they just play whatever they see first and they don't have a second thought what they're actually doing. Like, just read the card. Like, sometimes it's so easy, just 10 seconds to invest to avoid a possible mistake. Even though I'm going to talk about every single card, just read those cards, just read them again. Sometimes it just helps to win your duels, especially if your opponent is not prepared like you are after watching this video. And if you want to stay a little bit more focused, just bring something to eat and to drink. Like, the event is really long, so that's another advice I can give you to keep your concentration over the day. Advice number 5. Attack values and field control matter much more than the meta game. The sneak peek is like old school Yu-Gi-Oh! You just summon your huge attack beat sticks and just attack, attack, attack. Your opponent can only set like a monster, and again, if you have like 2 monsters with like 2300 attack on your side on the field, and your opponent has like 6 cards in his hand on and even on the field, it doesn't matter, you have the field control because you have the stronger monsters. It's really that easy on the sneak. Like, beat sticks are everything. Like, don't underestimate the effect, especially because there are not a lot of spell and trap and monster removals on the sneak peek at all. Like, there are maybe like 10 cards that actually have a chance to get rid of your monsters. Everything else is just way too situational, so you don't have to even keep this in mind. There are not a lot of cards. So again, if you have a monster with like a big attack, it matters much more than your opponent having more cards. And you should always think before triple summoning, for example, because if your opponent has an out, you have a big problem because you just lost all your field control. But if you can summon it and keep it on the field, this is where you're gonna win the duel. Let's move on to the 6th and last advice. Don't play situational cards. I see this all the time, even on locals, on regionals. People just think that a certain card is good because, yeah, I could play this together with this and this card, and if I have all 3 in my hand, I could do something really good. Even I personally fell for this trap. Don't do it. Just trust me, you always want to open with some decent defense or attack monsters on your side on the field. So those are my general advice for you, but obviously we get even more in depth in the next section where we talk about all 100 cards from the entire Code of the Duelist set and how good they are on the sneak peek. To make things easier for you, I just put all the cards in certain tiers. And all these tiers are colorized, and you see those as borders around those cards. So I categorize the following way. Cards that have a dark red border are completely trash, completely useless. Don't even play those cards because They require you to use a card from a different booster set or are so ridiculously situational that you will never ever activate them or get those on the field. Next up are the red ones. The red ones are really bad cards. Those tier 4 cards have 2 situational effects in general, or are just low attack monsters that have a mediocre effect that you really don't want to play. But if you have like 18 cards and then you don't know what to play anymore, maybe you might play a few of those, because maybe you just got really lucky and got like 6 cards of a certain archetype. Then some of those cards in the red section are actually kinda okay. I'm not saying they are good, I'm just saying that you can play them, but only if you get ridiculously lucky in a certain way. Next, the yellow cards, and as you can tell by yellow, those are just the most average cards in the set. They are not good, they are not bad. I mean, play them if you don't have any other choice to get to those 20 cards in your deck. Then we have the green ones, the tier 2 cards. Those are already really strong. Those are like 1800 beat stick, 2000 defense position monsters, or really good spell and trap cards that help you get rid of your opponent's monsters. Those are just cards that you immediately want to pick and put on the side if you open them in booster pack, so you can immediately sleeve them up and put them into your deck. And then we have the best cards, the tier 1 cards, which are just kind of break the rules, because those are just everything you want. They have good stats, they have an additional effect. They kind of work around a lot of other cards on the entire set, and those are just the cards that, again, you immediately want to pick, but they're just overall stronger than the tier 2 cards could even be. And then there are the tier 0 cards. There are 3 cards in the set which are completely over the top busted. One of them is a common, another one is a common but a short print, and then there's a secret rare. I'm not going to tell you what cards those are, but if you open one of those violet cards, play them. You just have to, because they are so incredibly busted. If you activate them, you're probably gonna win the duel, because they are that unfair. But more on that later when we talk about those cards in specific. But now, let's finally do it. Let's talk about all 100 cards. I'm really excited. I just want to point out that most of those cards' names are not official, so just look at their artwork, memorize their artwork instead. It's just overall more useful for you, because again, names could potentially change. So if I just say a name to a certain card, it doesn't mean that this is the final name. So keep that in mind. Let's finally start. First card is the promo card Vendred Houndhorde, and this card is definitely a decent pick. It's green, so that's a tier 2 card. It has 2100 defense. It has some additional effects if you use it for a ritual summon of a Vendred monster, but overall it's just a defensive wall that you contribute. It's just overall a decent pick. You cannot go wrong with this, so everyone gonna have an ultra rare copy of this card because it's the promo card, so I would definitely advise you play this. Next up, we have a very strong card. This is Cyber's Wizard. Cyber's Wizard has everything you want. He has level 4, he has 1800 attack, which again is very important on the sneak. He can put your opponent's monsters into the defense position. A lot of monsters in the sneak peek have a very low defensive stats, so this card can put him in defense, deal piercing damage. It's just a good way of pseudo removal against any strong monsters. Don't waste this card, just don't normal summon this on your first turn. Keep this until your opponent has a really strong monster on their field with a low defense value. Just play this, run it over, inflict some damage. This card is just really strong. Be happy if you open this super rare from the pack. Backup Secretary is normally not a bad card. You can special summon her if you control another cyber sponsor. There's only one problem. There are not that many cyber sponsors in the set, and some of them have a really high rarity, so the chance that you can actually special summon her is not that high. And even if you can, I doubt that you will see as much link summons on the sneak as you might think. And so what are you gonna do with this 1200 attack monster on your summoner field? Not that much. Even though field control is good and it's good to have an additional monster on your summoner field, her attack is not strong enough to withstand your opponent. So I sadly have to say this card is not that great. Let's talk about our first red card. This is a card that we definitely don't want to pick, which is Stack Reviver. Actually, Stack Reviver in the game itself is really good, but not on the sneak peek because its stats are just really low. And also, to make use of this, you need to link summon. And again, it's not gonna happen that often that you link summon. Don't play this. If you can avoid it, just don't use it. But the next card on the other hand is really awesome. This is Launcher Commander. This is a level 4 with 1700 attack. But wait, Blagaga, didn't you tell us that 1700 is bad? Yes, this is one of the few exceptions. First of all, this card gets 300 attack to any Cybers type monster on the field. And not only that, it also allows you to tribute Cybers type monsters to destroy one face-up monster your opponent controls. So this is one of the few insane removal options that you have. The best thing is you can even tribute itself. This is also one of the few combinations where Backup Secretary is good, because if you control this, you can special summon Backup Secretary, tribute her to destroy a face-up monster and then attack directly. This card is really decent. Like, any removal option on the Sneak is always nice. This is one of the few cards that you can play to get around those ridiculously overpowered monsters that we're going to talk about later. Definitely play as many as you can. Next up, we have a really decent monster which is called Savagement Driver. If you discard a spell card, you can special summon a Cybers type monster from your graveyard. And so this card is just an overall nice tribute monster, but sadly with 2200 attack, which is nearly enough but not enough. Next up, there are the Tricksters, and one of the better Tricksters is Trickster Rebel. So this is a monster that you always want to have in defense position with 2000 defense. It's a really solid wall. And just in case your opponent has 800 life points or less, you attack with this card directly and go for a game. So it's a nice additional option that this card has to offer. It's definitely not the best card on the set, but it's definitely a good pick because of its high defense value. Next up, we have Trickster Licorice. This is a decent pick. It has at least 1600 attack, which is not that bad. But again, 1600 is not as high as 1800, as the fact doesn't matter that much on the Sneak. Unlike Trickster Candina. Trickster Candina is just awesome, 1800 attack, search you another Trickster card. It has synergy with Trickster Rebel that you can special summon immediately from the hand if you search it. So this is just a really good card. It even inflicts a little bit of burn damage to your opponent with this card effect. So this is definitely a solid pick. Definitely play this and consider yourself lucky, but sadly this is an ultra rare, so not everybody's gonna have. Next are the Gookies. And here we have the worst Gookie on the Sneak at least, which is Gookie Twist Cobra. Gookie Twist Cobra can be tributed, or another Gookie can be tributed to give one of your other Gookies attack, which could be nice if you have a lot of Gookies. The problem is that all the Gookies are rare or super rare, so sadly the chances of having multiple Gookies is really low. So this is mainly just a 1600 beat stick, and because of that the card is just not that great. Unlike Gookie Suprex. Gookie Suprex has 1800 attack, special summons a Gookie on the field. It gives you attack value and feed presence in one card. This card is just awesome. Play it even if you don't have any other Gookies. It's just overall good because of its stats. Even better is Gookie Rising Scorpio, or Rise Scorpio, I think it's his final name. This card can be normal summoned if you don't control any monsters or only Gookie monsters. And a normal summon with 2300 attack, as mentioned, 2300 attack gets over everything that's level 4 or lower on the Sneak. It's just ridiculously awesome. This card is just one of the best cards that you can pull, one of the best rares you can get out of the pack. Play as many as you can. Just normal summoning this guy first turn is just so good, because it's just immediate threat. Your opponent needs immediate removal to get rid of it, otherwise he's gonna have a big problem. Next card is Jackworm. This card can be special summoned from your hand if there are no monsters on the field, either your opponent's side or your side. The main problem is, unless you are starting the game, you have this card in your hand and a level 5 or 6 tribute monster in your hand, this card is not that great. If you have a tribute monster in your hand and you can special summon this card is not that bad, but it's way too situational, so I wouldn't play this, seriously. Next up we have Jack Wyvern. This card is just awesome. Level 4, 1800 attack, already good, but it also has 0 defense, which is good on the Sneak, because of a certain really good common spell card that we're gonna talk about later. Also, this card is a machine, which is even better because it has synergy with a really good trap card that we're gonna talk about later. And it also can revive the next card that we're gonna talk about from your graveyard, which is crazy good. So this card has so much synergy with a lot of other really good cards that this card is really on the edge from tier 2 to tier 1. And definitely a really solid pick. And here is the monster that you want to summon, the Jack Wyvern, which is Kraken Dragon. This is a 3000 attack beatstick that can lower the attack of your opponent's monsters if they have a level. Also, it inflicts damage to your opponent if they summon a monster with a level. This card is actually crazy strong if you can summon it. The main problem is it's level 8 and you need to triple summon this. Unless you can somehow send it to the graveyard with the Light Swan Monsters effect and then just special summon it back from the graveyard with Jack Wyvern or back to the front, a really good trap card that we're going to talk about later. This card is so hard to summon. If you don't have any other triple monsters in your deck, go ahead and play this, it's okay. But if you already have like 2 or 3 other triple monsters, that's way too risky for a sneak peek. You don't want to have that many high level monsters in your deck. Next up is Supreme King Order Eyes. Maybe I got some hate for saying that this card is red, so a tier 4 really bad card, but the main problem is there are just better triple monsters with 3000 attack for 2 triples. The only way how you can make use out of this is if you pendulum summon it. Then yes, the card might be nice, but then again, it's too situational to just play 2 pendulums, and in this card you also have to get those other pendulums in the first place. A lot of other pendulums have a really weird scale, they don't work that well. So I don't know, I definitely wouldn't play this card unless you get really lucky and get tons of pendulums, which is not likely gonna happen. Next up is a monster that I'm not that sure about. This is Bitterblunt Bazinga Orga, I think it's his name. I probably butchered the name with my spelling, but it has 2000 attack, and if there's a Bitterblunt counter on your opponent's monster, you can tribute that opponent's monster to just normal summon this. Which is awesome, but the main problem is there are no other cards besides Bazinga Orga himself that can give Bitterblunt counters to opponent's monsters, so you need to play 2 of those to actually get its first effect off. Which is bad because first of all you have to pull 2 of those from your packs, and then you have to triple summon one of your monsters for this only 2000 attack monster, which cannot even get over like a 2000 defensive wall. There are way too many in the set. It can be good, but it's too situational in my opinion. Kinda like the next monster, which you cannot really use the effects of this monster, and it also is level 7, which is really bad because even though it has decent stats with 2300 attack and 2800 defense, the main problem with this card is just summoning it, and there are just better commons in the set that also have 2 triples and have 3000 attack, like the ultimate engine gear golem, ultimate pounder, how it's called. Those are just cards that are overall stronger than this. Next up we have a few of the World Chalice or Stark Rails, how they were called earlier. This is just an overall good card. The Priestess with 2100 defense, you cannot go wrong with this card. World Chalice Chosen is okay. I mean, he has 1600 attack, he's also a normal monster, he gets a lot of support from the Stark Rail support cards. There is a feed spell that can power up its attack and defense value, so that's a way to use him. The feed spell, by the way, is actually really good on a sneak peek. So if you have a lot of Stark Rails and a field spell, and this is one of your Stark Rails, go ahead and play them, otherwise I wouldn't play this. The next card is World Chalice Backhand, 1800 attack. Do I have to say more? No, I don't have. This is just a nice beatstick, definitely play this. If you can power up with the field spell to 2100 attack, it's even better, so this is a really nice monster that you definitely want to pick. Unlike World Chalice Guard Dragon, it's an ultra rare and it's cool and has a really nice artwork, but it just has overall bad stats and its effects don't matter that much, so this is definitely not a card that you want to pick. Then we have Lee the World Chalice Fairy, 2000 defense, again, already good stats, that's all it counts. It even adds another World Chalice monster from your deck to your hand, which is even better. It's just an overall decent monster, definitely pickable. And then we have World Legacy World Chalice. This is an odd card. It can be awesome on the sneak, but it's one of those cards. There's just too much setup needed. You need to pull too many other cards to make this thing work. If you have like 10 other World Chalice monsters, then go ahead, play this, but otherwise, no. And now we come to the Twilight Swans. Jane is probably the best one. He's only common, he has 1800 attack, and he even has a removal effect that if you banish another Light Swan monster from your hand, for example, that you can reduce the attack of your opponent's monster by the monster sent from the hand to the graveyard. Also, he already has 1800 attack for level 4, that's strong. Overall, this is just a nice, good beat stack. Then we have Lila. Lila is a 1700 beat stack, which is again a fact which is not good because there are so many 1800 monsters, so there are just too many cards that you can just run over her, which is not good. Same thing with Lumina. Lumina is even worse because it's very hard to trigger her effect and get advantage of that. She's also a secret rare and she only has 2000 attack and 1000 defense, so why are you playing her again? Raikou is an odd pick. This is one of the few options in the game to get rid of the best card in the entire set that we're gonna talk in a few minutes. It banishes a monster your opponent controls if it's flipped face up or normal summon, but the problem is Raikou's stats are just so bad and you also need other light runs, and even though its effect is actually good, you waste your normal summon or your set for a really low attack and defense value monster, which is not a thing that you want to do. So even though he can be nice, in most situations he won't be, and that's the main problem why it's only a yellow card. And now we come to the first card you should never play, which is Punishment Dragon. Sadly, this card is unplayable. You cannot banish 4 different Lightworm monsters with different names. You need to pull Lumina, which is another secret rare. There's just too much setup needed. So there is a tiny chance that you could play this, but even then, you will deck out earlier before you can even summon this guy. That's the main problem. Then we have another really bad card, which is Rescue Ferret. It's a secret rare, it has really low attack and defense values by its own. This card, don't play it, just don't. Next up we have a monster with, again, really decent stats, but not stats that are good enough, which is Traptrix Mantis. Just a little bit more attack and would have been decent, but it's just a yellow card again. Next up is a decent card that can be playable if you have Mrs. Radiant or another Link monster like IB, the Virtual Priestess. This card makes Link summoning actually pretty easy by special summoning back a level 4 lower monster from your graveyard, which is nice. If you have one of those Link monsters that I just named, go ahead, play this, otherwise don't play it, it's that easy. Next up is Treasure Panda. This card has not only 2000 defense but only allows you to special summon normal monsters from your deck by banishing spells and trap cards. The main problem is on sneaks there are not that many good spell and trap cards, so there aren't many spell and trap cards at your graveyard. So this is just a 2000 defensive wall, which is still okay and playable on the sneak. And then we have a really good card, which is Zombiena. If this card is destroyed by card effect, which is nearly always gonna be the case on the sneak, you can special summon any level 4 lower monster from your graveyard, which is just awesome. I mean, this card gives you offense and defense, and even though it doesn't have 1800 attack, and that doesn't matter because, again, this card could give you 1800 beat stick from the graveyard, which is the same thing. And it also has attack and defense, it keeps your field advantage. What more do you want? I mean, this card is just awesome. And there's one tier 1 card just in a row. This is Re-X. This card has 1900 attack and it's the only 1900 level 4 monster in the entire set. This card can attack over so many other really strong monsters, which is insane. Again, I talked about so many 1800 beat sticks already. This card completely breaks the rules by having 100 attack more. This matters a lot. This card gets over so many more monsters, which is just too good. It even gets additional attack if it attacks a Link monster, so 2006 is that I think 1700 beat stick if a Link monster your opponent controls is on the field, that's even better. Like, this card gets over nearly any threat your opponent can summon on the field. Go ahead, play any single copy that you pull from your packs. And now we get to the really broken stuff. This is Orbital Hydrolander, which is a common. For some reason, this is just common, and it's not even a short print. This is just a normal common. This is one of the most broken cards that you can summon. And I have to talk about this card for a few minutes at depth because it's that powerful. So the fact is, if you have 5 or more monsters with different names in your graveyard, by the way, you cannot normal summon this guy, you can special summon this card from your hand. He has 3000 attack. 3000 attack. And if that wasn't strong enough, he also has a removal effect that can draw any card on the field that doesn't even target. by just sending the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard, and that effect is during either player's turn. It only works if you still have all monsters in your graveyard with only different names. But still, this is just so broken on the sneak peek. Keep an eye in your opponent's graveyard, because if your opponent summons this thing, you're dead. You're just dead. You're gonna lose the game. If you not have an immediate answer to this card with a really powerful spell or trap card that your opponent is probably gonna destroy with this card's effect anyway, if you can trigger its destruction effect during either player's turn, the only win option that your opponent probably has is that you send cards from your deck to the graveyard, so you're gonna deck out first, but that's the only win option he's gonna have. So keep an eye on your deck pile so that you don't deck out by its own effect, but besides that, this card is just completely overpowered, busted. This card is gonna be the card on the sneak peek. It's just that strong. Yes, guys, this card is just overpowered. Completely over the top overpowered. Keep this in mind, this will be the card on the sneak to beat. And then we're gonna have another ridiculously overpowered monster. This is a short print. So not everybody's gonna have it, like every 5th to 6th player. But that doesn't matter because this card is just crazy. This is the Immortal Hermit of Thunder, and this is a 2700 beat stake that you can just special summon from your hand by paying 3000 life. But it gets even better. If this card is destroyed by battle or by card effect by your opponent, you gain 5000 life points. There is nearly no way besides Raikou, Twilight Swan Hunter to not destroy this card. Which means that this card just says you get 2000 life points and a 2700 beat stake from your hand. You can still normal summon, you can expand your field advantage. This card is so incredibly busted on the sneak, like what the hell were they thinking? Like if you pull this, play as many as you can, this card is just over the top crazy strong. It's probably even better than Orbital Hydrolander because Orbital Hydrolander has a summoning requirement. This, not really. You just have to pay 3000 life points, but that's not a problem. This card is just so crazy strong, like, again, there's no real counter to this card. That's the main problem. Like, you just have to use a removal options because otherwise this card is just gonna run over every single monster that you set or normal summon and you're just gonna lose the game. This card is crazy unfair. So again, this is one of the 3 best cards in the entire set that you can pull. The next really insane card of the sneak is Parrying Knights. What this card does is that if you get damage by an opponent's attack, you can special summon this card from your hand. And it has 2300 attack. That's already really powerful, but it can do even more. It can even special summon monster from your hand after that. That has a lower and I think also equal attack value to the damage you took. So you basically get 2 monsters from your hand. If your opponent attacks you, you get immediate defense. This card is just awesome. Play as many copies as you can. This is a very strong recover card. Keep this in mind, if you attack, you know already that your opponent has it. It's very risky to attack, especially if you attack directly. So now we come to the extra deck monsters, and let's be honest, there are not that many valuable and good ones. So Supreme King Starving Venom is, you could summon this, but it's nearly impossible. So that's why it's red. I mean, if you can, just play it in your extra deck because it's just an extra deck card. So obviously there's no downside. You don't have to play it in your main deck. But this card is, you will not see this card in the sneak. That's everything I want to say. Next we have a monster that you cannot really summon, which is Supreme King Clearwing. There is a way to summon it, but it's way too crazy. So no, just don't play this. And the same thing is for this card, and for this one. All these 3 monsters that you just seen right there on the screen can simply not be summoned. And now we come to the link monsters. Here is obviously Firewall Dragon. Firewall Dragon, consider yourself lucky if you get one. It's probably gonna be the most pricey card from the entire set. It's gonna be worth a lot of money. It's very hard to summon. If you can summon it, I mean, go for it. I mean, there's no downside in putting it into your extra deck, but I doubt that anybody is gonna summon it during the sneak peek. And that pretty much applies to basically all the link monsters, no matter if Trickster or Holy Angel, which is okay if you have a lot of Tricksters, but they are very high rarity, so that's not gonna be the case. The same thing with Gookie Great Ogre. You're probably not gonna see this because all the Gookies have really high rarities, at least for the sneak peek. Then Topologic Bomber Dragon, sorry that artwork is that dark. You cannot really summon this guy. Like Link 4, it's not that easy. I doubt that anybody will summon those monsters. Here's one of the few exceptions, and here's one ridiculous great advice that you can give you to play around this card. So this is Imduk, the Virtuelist Dragon. This card can destroy any or wins any battles against monsters that it points to. How you can counter this card is really easy. Just normal summon in the middle column or in the left column or the right column. So your opponent, even if they have this card and even if they can summon this, it's just completely worthless because again, all your monsters are not in the zone that this card affects. So you can just simply play around this by just doing this. Just normal your monsters in the middle column, the left column and the right column, not in the second left and the second right column. That's easy. Next we have Ip, the Virtuelist Priestess. This is a Link monster that you can definitely play. It has 1800 attack. The summoning conditions are 2 monsters with different attributes and types, which is completely doable. So if you draw this, why not play it? You probably can summon it. Next up we have Aurum, the Virtuelist Swordsmaster. This card can only be summoned by using 2 Virtuelist monsters, but he has 2000 attack. He gains even more attack for monsters in your graveyard, which is nice. So, and then he can even revive like your Starcruel back in from your graveyard. He's definitely a decent monster. You won't see this card that often on the sneak, but if you can summon it, go ahead, put it into your extra deck. And then we have Yugioh, the Virtuelist Warrior. This card is very hard to summon. If you can summon it, his removal effect to send a card from either player's side on the field to the graveyard is awesome. But again, you need 2 other Link monsters to summon this, which is not gonna happen that often. Then we have Gaia Saba. I think it's the Lightning Knight. This is just one of the best Link monsters that you can get from the sneak. It's just a 2600 attack beat stick, and you need 3 monsters on your side of the field, which you can do. But the main problem is just to pull this because it's a secret rare, so this is definitely not a card that you have to prepare for. Just play it in your extra deck if you draw it, but well, it's not gonna play a huge role on the sneak. Unlike Mrs. Radiant. Mrs. Radiant just requires 2 Earth monsters. She boosts herself to 1900 attack already, which is strong enough to get over most monsters. Keep in mind, she powers up your opponent's Earth monsters too, and also she reduces all the attack of all Wind type monsters on the field. Together with Mord Captain, this card is just easy to summon. I think this is definitely one of the best Link monsters that you can get because it's just the easiest to summon. It has the biggest payoff because 1900 attack is just good. Now we come to spell and trap cards. Here's one of the better ones. I think like one of the few options to actually get rid of your opponent's spell and trap cards. This is an ultra rare card, so don't expect this to. Everybody has this, but Trickster Light Stage is definitely a good card. You can pick a face down card your opponent controls and then destroy it at the end of their turn unless they activate it, but basically it's spell and trap removal. It also adds you another Trickster monster from your deck to the hand, which is just good. It's definitely a good card that you want to play to bait out your opponent's removal options in their back row. Next we have Gookie Rematch. Okay, this card is actually ridiculously good, but not in the sneak peek. All the Gookies have really high rarities. There's nearly no way that you can actually activate this and get its full value out of it. I would not play this. Same thing with this card right here. You can make a machine type monster attack twice. If you equip this to Cracking Dragon, that's definitely not bad, but the thing is, you playing a card just to put it on like 1 or 2 monsters in your deck, that's not worth it. Like, just don't use this card. Smile Universe, it's really situational. With Supreme King Odd Eyes, it can be useful, but it has also many downsides. I don't think this card is gonna be good or even playable. Just another card that I would not advise you to use. Then we have actually decent spell card again, which is Virtuelist Discovery. This card boosts all your Virtuelist monsters by 300 attack and defense. Also, if a Virtuelist monster leaves the field by an opponent's card effect or by battle, you can special summon it from the graveyard back, which is awesome. You keep field control and all your Virtuelist monsters are boosted. If you have at least like 3 Virtuelist monsters, play this, otherwise don't play it. This card, Virtuelist I think Aegis it's called, a Word Relict Aegis, is too situational. Like, you don't have that many virtualists in your graveyard normally, so there's no real value of activating this card, so I would not recommend playing it unless you really have a lot of virtualist monsters. This is another really risky card. You can add one Twilight Swan monster from the graveyard back to your hand, which sounds really awesome, right? But the main problem is you also banish the top 4 cards of your deck while activating this. So this card actually has a huge downside because those cards are banished and you are decking out faster. So even if you have a few Twilight Swans, you could use this. I would not recommend to playing it. But if you get a chain back from your graveyard with this effect, and yeah, that might be worth it. Otherwise, no, don't play this. And it's time for another useless card. So Judgment Dragon is not in the set, so why the hell are you even playing this? Just don't. The same thing with the next card. This card, again, is way too situational. You could only search one card if you pulled it 3 times, and it's a secret rare rescue favorite, so this is not a card that you want to play. And then we have Spellbook of Knowledge, which is actually a really good card, one of the best ultra rares that you get from the set, but the main problem is, on a sneak peek, this card is worthless because you have to triple the spellcaster type monster, you have to give up field presence to draw cards, both things that you actually don't want because you deck out faster and you lose your field advantage. Don't play this. Now we come to a really good spell card that you always have to keep in mind while attacking. This card reduces the attack of one monster on the field by its defense. A lot of monsters in this set actually have a defense set of 0, so this card is not as powerful as you might think, but just the option that you can counter a few really powerful monsters in this set with this card alone is just worth playing every single copy that you get. You can also activate this during the damage step, which is even better. It's a quick play. There's nothing wrong with this card, just every kind of removal on the sneak peek is always good, so this is definitely a card that you want to play. Then we have Boogie Trap. You can recycle trap cards from the graveyard by discarding 2 cards. Okay, so you have to get rid of 3 cards basically to get back a trap card, which is not going to be worth it. Don't play this, just trust me. Next up we have a completely useless card. You can only activate this if you have multiple link monsters on the field, which is not going to be the case, so just don't activate Castle Link. Same thing with Defense Zone. You can protect your spell and trap card zone with this card, but the main problem is there aren't that many spell and trap destruction cards in the set anyway, so you really don't have to worry that your spell and trap cards are going to get destroyed. There is no real reason to, in my opinion at least, to play this card. Next up we have an actually decent card, at least for the sneak peek. Normally it would be complete trash. This is 3 Strike Barrier, and if your opponent controls exactly 3 cards, you can activate one of the following effects. You can protect your monsters from being destroyed by battle, make all the battle damage 0 for example. There's some nice utility there. Protecting your monsters from being destroyed by battle effect is obviously the best one. That's the one that I would go for. It's not really worth outplaying this card, so if you summon like your 3rd card and you think, oh my god, what if my opponent has 3 Strike Barrier right now? I don't think it's gonna matter that much, but this is definitely a card that you can pick. It's not as good as some of the other monster removals in the game, but it's just overall decent to protect your monsters. And then we have the last of the 3 completely busted cards. This is a secret rare, so you don't have to worry about this card as much as Immortal Helmet of Thunder or Orbital Hydralander, but I'm gonna say this, you're gonna win by just taking your opponent out. After like 5 turns, they're gonna lose the duel because they are gonna deck out. Like, this is just so unfair. I still remember the sneak peek where Present Card was a thing, and the guy who won the sneak peek at that event just had 2 copies of Present Card. Present Card is a very similar card to Trickster Reincarnation. The next card is really nice. Sadly, it only works together with machine type monsters. It's called Pulse Mines. It just forces all the opponent's monsters, if you control a machine type monster, into defense position, and all the monsters they summon for the rest of the turn go to defense position, which is just so awesome because if you activate this, you can just shut down your opponent's entire turn. Now, obviously the downside is there, you need to control a machine type monster, but that's why Jack Wyvern is so good. It's a level 4 machine with 1800 attack, we already talked about it. This card and Jack Wyvern work perfectly together. play this card if you have a Jack Wyvern. This is one of the few cards that, even though it's situational, it's completely worth it because its effect is that powerful. You can easily attack over all this 1800 beatstick that probably have like 0 defense, and you can just wreck your opponent's entire field. Just make a huge turnover with this card. It's absolutely awesome. Then we have a completely worthless card with Supreme King's Wrath. You're not playing Zark because Zark is not in the set, so why in the world are you playing this again? Then we have probably the card that could be absolutely busted and also really bad. This is Word Chalice Guidance, I think, or Landmark, how it's called now. This card allows you to special summon 2 monsters from your graveyard by banishing a Word Relic from your hand. The main problem is there's only 1 Word Relic in the set, and even then you need already 2 monsters that are kinda good in your graveyard to activate this. If you can, for example, special 3000 beatsticks from your graveyard with this effect, obviously this card is really busted, but this is not gonna happen all the time. So this is one of the few cards that can be absolutely ridiculously awesome game winning and then really bad on the other hand. In my opinion, it's too situational, but this is one of the few cards that has such a wide range how powerful it could be. Then we have Twilight Swan Eraser. This is very hard to activate. You basically need Lumina, a secret rare from the set, so not a lot of people gonna play this, maybe like 1 person on the sneak. And even then, this card is very situational. Like, trust me guys, this card is way too hard to activate. I would not recommend playing this. Next up we have Twilight Swarm Clove. Same thing like with Twilight Swan Eraser that we just talked about. You need too much setup for this to actually work, so I would again not play it unless you put like 3 chains from your packs. Then we have a card that you cannot play because there are no Dark Words, which is Dark World Brainwashing. Don't play this, you cannot activate this card anyway. And we're coming really close to the end. This is Break of Gravefall. This is one of the most powerful traps in the entire set. If you can link summon, if you have the option to have like summon like 2 links monsters, for example Mrs. Radiant or IB, the World Chalice Priestess, go ahead, play this. Otherwise this is a risky pick, but otherwise this card can be very devastating. Here's one of the few spell and trap removal options which is actually good. I think it's the only good one in the entire set, which is Heavy Storm Duster. This card destroys 2 spell and trap cards your opponent controls, but you cannot attack this turn. Obviously you want to use this card during your opponent's end phase to get the maximum amount of value out of this card and not have it any drawbacks. This card is really good, play it if you can get it. This is definitely one of the better super rares from this set. And then we have a really awesome card. This is Back to the Front. This card just special summons any monster back from your graveyard, doesn't matter which level, in defense position. So you want to activate this card during your opponent's end phase too, because then you can just switch the monster during your turn immediately into attack position, so you can revive any monster no matter what its defense value is without being destroyed by battle. This card is just awesome. Play any single copy that you can get from the packs. It's just one of the best cards that you can get. Then we have Recall. This card destroys monsters and lets your opponent draw a card if they activate a monster effect. This card is actually kind of decent because if your opponent normal summons and then activates the monster effect, your opponent wasted their normal summon, they're not gonna special summon that much on the sneak peeks anyway, so basically ended their turn. This card is really nice, for example, against certain monsters like Launcher Commander and also Raikou like Twilight Swan Hunter. It's a little bit situational because there aren't that many monster effect activations on the sneak, trust me. But it's definitely nice to play this, just to have an easy out against certain really powerful removal options. So this is definitely a good card. And then we're gonna talk about one of the most broken cards in the set. This card is so close to being one of the overpowered cards on my list. It's called Blind Ruination. You have to roll a dice twice, and if you do that, you can destroy all monsters on the field which level is lower than the result that you rolled. This card can completely wipe out entire boards. This is also the reason why you don't want to summon like 3 level 4 or lower monsters on your side of the field, because if your opponent has this card and it's not that high rarity, so the chances are higher that some opponents have this, they can just wipe out your entire board. This is one of these cards that you should definitely think a lot about during the sneak peek and how to avoid it, especially if you already played one game against an opponent or already know that your opponent has this. You want to avoid this at all costs. This is a very strong card. Next card is probably the most luck-seeking card in the entire set. This is Transmission Gear. This card is the first Yu-Gi-Oh card that forces you to play a game of rock, paper, scissors with your opponent. If you are the rock, paper, scissors king of this planet, go ahead and play this and banish your opponent's monsters face down with this card. But the risk is so big. How I would advise playing this: if one of your opponent's monsters is attacking one of your monster and your monster is weak anyway and it's not worth keeping it on the field, then go ahead, use this. So now there's the only card in the entire set I don't have an artwork on. It's called Samurai Skull. There isn't a card artwork available right now, so I cannot show you the artwork. It's a zombie type monster with 1700 attack, and if it's normal time you can send a zombie type monster from your deck to the graveyard. It also has some nice recovery if your opponent destroys it with a card effect, or it leaves the field because of opponent's card effect, then you can special summon zombie type monster from your deck, which is nice. Again, it has 1700 attack, so close to being good, but it's a solid pick. It would be yellow if I had the picture available. Then we have Revengeful Slayer. This is a ritual monster that you can ritual summon with Vendred Origin. This card can be very powerful, and if you have a lot of Vendred cards and maybe even multiple copies of this card and a ritual spell, go ahead and play this, because it's a 2400 beat stick that can power itself up. It can even get ridiculously powerful effects with the Vendred monsters that can give it its effect. The Vendred cards are already decent. You can definitely play them. Again, play this only if you have a lot of Vendred cards. And here is one of the best monsters in my opinion in the entire set. This is Vendred Revenants. If this card is destroyed by battle or by card effect, it special summons itself from the graveyard again, but then it's banished. This card is just so good. It's basically two monsters in one. You can even crash in your opponent's beat sticks that have like 1800 attack and attack them directly again. This card is attack and defense. It's basically the best game opener. This card is awesome. This is just a common. Play every single copy that you pull. Trust me, this card is just crazy good. Not even talking about the crazy ritual effect that it can give you to your ritual monster by banishing during either player's turn or special summon monster. How good is that? Then we have Revengeful Origin. Obviously you only play this if you have also the ritual monster. And then we have Revengeful Origin. I would not recommend playing this. The downside effect that the token gives to you is just too big. Here's one of the best advice in the entire video that I can give you. If your opponent is stupid and activates this card against one of your monsters, he gets a token. So he cannot normal summon or special summon anymore, only set. Which means that your opponent cannot attack anymore. If your opponent has less cards in his deck than you have, just don't do anything. You also cannot use the token for link summon, so you're just doing anything. Like you just let your opponent deck out. Whereas you played with 21 cards, like I told you, your opponent only played with 20 cards. He was stupid, he activated this card. He cannot attack, he cannot get rid of his own card. You just win. It's that easy. And that's also the reason why you should not play it. I mean, in certain situations, this card can be awesome, but it has such a massive drawback that I wouldn't actually play it. Then we have FA Sonic Meister, which is okay. This card gets stronger with each additional level that it has. It's only good if you have also the FA spell cards that we're going to talk about in a few seconds. And then we have FA Hunger on Macht. This card has at least decent defense value. So even without the spell cards, it's at least okay. But if you have the spell cards, this card can actually be pretty damn good. I'm not gonna lie, if you have multiple copies of this card and the field spell, that would actually be worth playing. And here's the field spell. All your FA monsters during the battle phase of both players get 2 additional levels, so 600 attack. If you activate this, they also get basically 300 attack because of their effects. You can draw cards. If they destroy your opponent's monster by battle, you get a lot of advantage. This is just overall a good card if you have a lot of FA monsters. If you don't have a lot of FA monsters, don't play this. It's, again, that easy. The same thing with the next card. FA Downforce is a quick play spell that basically increases the attack of one of your FA monsters till the end of the turn by 900. And then during the next turn you can banish it to do basically the same thing again. This card can be awesome if you have a lot of FA monsters in your deck. Now we come to the last 10 cards, and here's Junkbreaker, an 1800 beat stick, do I have to say more. You can tribute himself to negate the effects of all monsters your opponent controls till the end of the turn, but I don't see a big benefit of using this. You rather just want your 1800 beat stick. Then we have the monster with the level 4 monster with the highest defense in the entire set. If you control 2 of those, your opponent cannot attack at all, any of your monsters, which is nice. So if you have 2 of those commons on your side on the field, you have the ultimate defense, and you can just stack your opponent out kinda. He needs to destroy one of them with a card effect, otherwise he's not gonna be able to attack, which is really nice. But just over having a level 4 with 2200 defense, that's pretty impressive in my opinion. Then we have Eternity Bishop. This card can be special summoned from your hand if it's the only monster. It also has decent defense value of 2000, so that's a decent pick that you could definitely play. And then we have one of these cards where I'm really not sure if they are really busted or not. This card has an unspeakable name. I think it's called Wicked Monk Dabak Samma or something like that. It's just a weird name, but this card can be normal summoned without tributing if you have 6 cards in your hand together with him. Which is really powerful because if you go second and open this, you can normal summon this without tributing. Also, if he's destroyed, you can special summon him back in defense position, but he has 0 defense. And then he's counted as a tuner, which is one of the few options in the entire set how you can actually synchro summon, but it's very unlikely. The thing is this card good? In my opinion not, it's too situational. It only works in one very specific situation. I would maybe side this in if you go second, then it makes more sense and it's not that bad. But if you go first, no, just don't play it. Then we have Galaxy Worm. This card can summon a duplicate of itself from the deck. The main problem is there are no real link monsters that you can summon with those 2 monsters only. So even if you get 2 copies of Galaxy Worm, this card just doesn't have the stats to be good. I would not recommend playing it. Then we have one of the few pendulum monsters in the set. This is Performapal Trump Panda. This card can increase its pendulum scale by every single turn. The main problem is there are not a lot of pendulum monsters in the entire set, so it's very hard to pendulum summon at all. So I would not recommend playing this because its attack value is just also way too low. Then we have Destiny Deadly Guy is completely unplayable on the sneak, so just don't play it. And then we have one of the few cards again, which I'm not sure about. This card could be completely busted because it has a very high scale, a pendulum scale of 8, which is just awesome. But the main problem is there are not that many pendulum cards in the entire set, so playing this to potentially summon like a Supreme King Odd Eyes from your hand or it would be nice, but also this card is one of the few options how you can actually fusion summon the Supreme King Starving Venom by just using 2 copies of this card. So this card has a lot of utility to make certain cards very powerful, but the main problem is first of all you have to open up with 2 of them, then you have to open up with a lot of other pendulum monsters. If you have those options, this card is great, otherwise no. And then another pendulum monster, this is Beast Void Passing Rider. This card can be special summoned from your hand if there are no monsters on the field on both player side. So this is the perfect game opener. It has 2200 attack, which is actually pretty nice. This in my opinion definitely a solid card. Also a 1 tribute monster with 2200 attack is not that bad. Yeah, just play this. Definitely nice card. And then we have the last card, Ancient Gear Golem Ultimate Pound. A 3000 beat stake. It can attack up to 3 times. This card is really devastating. High risk, high reward if you play this. It's very hard to summon, but if you get it on the field, this card is very, very powerful. So if you don't have that many high level monsters in your deck, play it, otherwise don't. Wow guys, we actually did it. My audio file I think is 2 hours long that I just recorded. I can hardly talk. We actually made it to the end. This is the most in-depth guide on this event by far. I don't think anybody is sane enough to make such a guide besides me. If you watch this far, leave the hashtag in the comments. Blagaga is insane, so that I know that you're also insane. We are soulmates. This video was so much work. My voice is completely gone right now. I already know that I won't have a voice tomorrow. I feel it in my throat. I wish you all a good sneak peek. Hopefully you win. Maybe it would be really nice if you could write your reports after the sneak peek down in the comment section so that I know if I did a good job on this guide or not. Maybe there are some things that I completely overlooked. I don't think so, because I really prepared very well for this guide and spent a lot of hours making this. It's always possible to forget a certain thing. Yeah, that's already it. This video was way too long. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Again, this video was so much work. Please support this channel. It's just a small Yu-Gi-Oh channel. Please. The only way for me to grow is if you like and share this video, especially if you share this video. This is awesome. And have a nice sneak. Till next time. Bye.